I really tried to like this one, guys. I really did. So BioMutant is a new game from Experiment 101, published by THQ Nordic, and enjoyed by very few. Now, usually I just give you a list of all the shit wrong with it and leave it at that, but the thing is, there's a lot of potential in this game, and unlike, say, Cyberpunk, the problems are less with the core game and more with where they put their focus when creating the world, and in my mind that makes it a bit worse because most of the problems could be fixed so easily. BioMutant opens with an admittedly pretty cool cutscene, and when it's over we jump cut back to the beginning of it to create our character and replay the cutscene as a tutorial. Here's where the problems begin. It starts off alright with us choosing our initial body type and skills, but then everything after that is done with these weird array sliders, which make it functionally impossible to get your character to look the way you want. This type of slider works great for choosing colors on a gradient, but not for choosing physical attributes and looks. You didn't need to reinvent the wheel here, guys. Regular sliders, or even just a list of preloaded features you can mix and match from, would have worked just fine. This shit does not work. Anyway, once you fight your way through the character creator, you get punched in the face with the binary moral choice system that adds to immersive RPG mechanics what a bag of dog shit does to the center of a wedding cake, and then we finally get the combat tutorial. After that, we have to sit through 2 more combat tutorials before getting locked into a flashback that tutorializes one very specific side quest that I never even bothered doing. This was completely pointless, Experiment 101. You genuinely did not need to do this. Introduce this character whoever you want, but save this flashback tutorial for if we decide to start that side quest. I guess this is as good a place as any to talk about the dialogue system, and I will do so in the style of the dialogue system. Ahem. He says they're all dialogue trees, but they all boil down to Jesus of Nazareth, Neutral Nancy, or Grand Duke Dickhead the Seventh. He says he understands they may not have had room in their budget for full voice acting, but just giving us the subtitles for the characters instead of having all the dialogue and emotion filtered through the narrator would have been far more immersive and far less annoying. Ooh, he sounds perturbed. He says doing the dialogue this way completely detaches the player from the conversation, since it feels like they're just a bystander rather than an active participant, and fixing it would have been as simple as removing the narrator, recording a few more lines of Banjo-Kazooie-style gibberish to convey the intended emotion, and then changing the subtitles to translate the character's words directly. Do you see how f***ing annoying that is? Anyway, as soon as this is over, we have a choice to make. See, there are 4 monsters eating the 4 main roots of the Tree of Life at the center of the map, and we have to fight them in order to save the world. I guess. But before we can do that, we have to choose one of 2 warring tribes to ally ourselves with. The first is a tribe of warmongering shitbirds who want to ensure their survival by killing off anyone and anything they see as too weak to live, and the other's a peace-loving, handholds and gentle hug society who just wants everyone to be friends. The thing is, they hammer home wanting to minimize casualties in the war, but when you join up with them, the missions to overthrow the neighboring tribes forces you to murder your way to the boss before giving you the option of resolving it peacefully, so it kind of feels like a moot point. Anyway, once you choose a faction, you get sent on a mission that turns into a flashback to your childhood where you get tutorials on swimming, crafting, and combat, as well as some backstory explaining the vendetta between your character and the main villain. Now, in my opinion, this would have been the place to start the game. All the tutorials you need for the entire game are right here, and not only that, but it gives your character a reason to be where they are. The gist of the main plot is that you've been wandering the wasteland for a while and return home by pure coincidence since your memories are mostly missing and a bit hazy, and this flashback is supposed to represent your memories returning to you. If they had just started the game here, we could have skipped the overlong dialogue in the beginning, avoided having to do 3 separate combat tutorials, and suddenly having a flashback to a past unresolved trauma would have been a much stronger character motivation to return home than just ending up going back because you just happened to get chased into a hole in the wall that led here. Also, I can't think of anywhere to put this, so I'll put it here, but I thought the fur being melted off your arm by the weird oily goop would have some kind of weird Princess Mononoke thing going on, but as far as I can tell, it's just been added because it looks cool. I don't know, I guess I was just hoping for more. Anyway, once you've completed the 7-hour tutorial, you finally get to start the story, which basically consists of go to a place, do a series of fetch quests in order to build what you need to fight the boss, then go to the boss arena to fight the boss, rinse and repeat. As you explore, you'll discover little side quests and other distractions that usually reward you with armor or weapon upgrades, and the loot mechanic in this game is completely broken. Essentially, you can craft melee weapons and firearms from junk you find scattered around, and I actually like that rather than crafting a whole new weapon every time you find better tech, you can just modify your existing equipment with whatever you find. It gives this feeling of being a scavenger using whatever's available to give themselves an edge. The problem is in the armor and clothing category. See, you can craft armor patches to put on your clothing to boost his stats, but A, they invariably look like fresh watery goat shit, because they float several inches away from your character, and all I can think about when I have crafted armor on is how much it would hurt to get hit by anything when you have a piece of metal screwed to your fucking back. And B, I never crafted a single piece of armor outside the tutorial, and I did just fine. The problem is that at any given point, you'll have one item in your clothing inventory that's massively better than anything else you have, and if you find a piece that you like the look of but isn't worth wearing anymore because the stats are too low, then that's just too bad, because upgrading armor is far too expensive with way too small a stat boost to be worth it in any way whatsoever. Basically, I hope you like the look of that strong piece of armor you just picked up, because everything else you find for the next 6 hours isn't going to be good for anything but scrapping for parts. I guess this could be fixed by scaling armor pickups to your level to some degree. Maybe guarantee armor pickups won't be more than 4 levels below or 3 levels above you or something. I don't know. I guess since I've already talked about the lackluster story and most of the mechanics, I can mention the art and world building now. BioMutant is gorgeous to look at for the most part, but they went a little buck wild with the color saturation and bloom. Took me almost half an hour to find the right brightness setting before it stopped making me feel like I was looking directly up the glorious heavenly butthole of God. The problem is, the mystique and draw to explore that this world would naturally have is shot down by the developers thinking I'm an idiot. Apparently, the world of BioMutant is set long after an overbearing corporation polluted the world so badly that humanity had to leave the planet, allowing for a new sentient species to evolve in its place. How do I know that's what happened, rather than, say, a nuclear event or natural disaster? Maybe by piecing it together through background clues or item descriptions? No, you f***ing idiot. The narrator just straight up tells you about 30 seconds into the tutorial, and then again every 10 to 15 minutes after that for the rest of the game. It never stops being brought up. Experiment 101 wanted to have an environmentalist message in their game, but didn't want to actually put in any work, so instead of writing some cool notes or item descriptions from the point of view of our protagonist trying to piece together the history of the world, they stopped just short of sending someone directly to your house to beat you with a crowbar with the word recycle painted down the side. As for those item descriptions I keep mentioning, there aren't any. This is a crime against interactive storytelling. Not only is it so easy to come up with little snippets for each bit of junk, but it would do so much for the world building and characterization of the protagonist. Here, I'll get you started. Instead of calling this item toilet paper, because how the hell would he know that's what it is, call it, I don't know, scroll cloth or something, and write, this cloth isn't very strong, but it must have been highly valuable seeing how it was hoarded by the ancient ones. Maybe it was a kind of currency. You see what I mean? It gives you room for some fun social commentary while also allowing you to tell your story with some sort of subtlety rather than taking the deer through a plate glass window approach. But no, everything has to be filtered through this fucking narrator who won't shut the up even when you turn his fucking dialogue frequency down to fucking 0. In fact, most of the game's issues could be fixed by ditching the fucking narrator. Now, I know most of Experiment 101's budget went to hiring a guy with a voice like warm chocolate sauce gently running down your inner thighs, but all he does is make you feel like you're not really a part of the story and are just being reluctantly brought along like an annoying kid brother at a carnival. He's gotta go. It's like there was one guy with some really great ideas and then another guy who made it their mission to ruin everything the first guy came up with. Hey, let's make the main character a lone wanderer with a vendetta against a villain who killed his family. Yes! Let's also make the inciting incident a run-in with the same villain before any of that is explained, and then make the villain act like the first encounter never happened when you actually go to the boss fight and they haven't seen each other in years. Okay, so what if we make the stakes personal by having the villain not only kill the main character's family, but also take his eye as a way of marking him in the future? Yeah, and let's make sure not to actually show that in the flashback to when that happened and have the main character escape without injury, leaving the player completely confused as to when he actually lost the eye in the first place. Sure. Oh, let's have a deep combat system where you can mix and match several fully customizable types of melee and ranged weapons, as well as different superpowers and special moves. Absolutely. Let's also make sure there's no real lock-on mechanic, making it basically impossible to hit the enemy you're trying to target, and also make sure that enemies are able to stun lock you, but your attacks whiff right through them so that combat feels like trying to swat a mosquito with a tennis racket. Okay, but what if we... Ooh, let's also make the button combos to do special moves easily interruptible by enemies, and also randomly not work, so that even if you do everything right, you'll still get screwed for entirely no reason. Sure. Fine. Hey, what if we base this world's culture in Chinese folklore and tradition? Did you say Chinese or Japanese? Chinese. They're the same thing, right? No. Whatever. Let's randomly mishmash Chinese and Japanese cultural references, set it somewhere that has old red phone booths for some fucking reason, and randomly throw in some 1950s Americana that absolutely doesn't belong and kills the entire atmosphere for the sake of a reference. Can we... Okay, you know what? Fine. Keep that, but we're going to have an RPG system where the player has to make difficult moral choices. Yes, I love that, but let's make it so there's absolutely no risk or sacrifice involved in choosing the good side over the bad side, and make every NPC seem fully aware of the moral choice system so that they can literally tell the player they'll get the bad ending if they choose the dark side, and if that isn't enough, let's give them an actual angel and devil on their shoulder who take turns berating the player at every turn. What? Why are you like this? I mix my cocaine with paint! I'm just so baffled by these decisions. It feels like they didn't quite have the budget or workforce to do what they wanted to do and just made the exact wrong decision every time when it came to working around those restraints. I don't hate BioMutant. Actually, after playing through Immortals Fenyx Rising, I don't think I have the energy to hate BioMutant. In fact, I really like the character designs and the core mechanics are solid, but it's everything around that that's the problem. It's like they had a perfectly nice pancake. Nothing special, but a good, solid pancake, and their solution to giving it more flavor was covering it a bunch of dead ants and fertilizer. I mean, yes, technically the goal was achieved, but it's not really something I can recommend to anyone except people who are interested in a solid, if bland experience buried under piles of bullshit grit. I want to like it. I still want to like it. At least it tried to do something. But it just didn't succeed. I guess that's really all I have to say about BioMutant. It's just not very good. Anyway, thanks for stopping by. I'll see you next time.